Welcome back to Week in Horror. Today we're going to cover January 19th through January 25th. I'm Eugene, and with me is Alex and JL.
Hey, what's up, guys?
How's it going, everybody?
So there are a couple things we wanted to talk about first before we actually dive into our movies. And the first thing we're going to talk about is from the Oddity Files.
Yes, our good friend Kitsy Duncan, who is the primary host over at the Oddity Files on Amazon Prime. It's a paranormal investigation and kind of historical show that is on Amazon. You can check it out on Amazon Prime. All 3 seasons are up. Has started a new podcast. And Kitsy is getting short stories from independent authors and doing audio recordings of their stories on her podcast. The podcast is called Get Scared.
Ooh.
And it's available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, wherever you find your great podcasts. And it's fantastic because, and the reason I bring it up is she chose one of the chapters from my novella from the Beach Street Chronicles to read on her podcast. I'm actually episode 4 in that one. So I was honored that she would choose me and felt me. I wrote well enough to be on her podcast, and I wanted to give them a huge shout out. Not just so you can hear my shit, but
kind of
just because Kitsy's been a huge Kitsy and the crew over at Oddity Files have been such a friend to us in helping to promote us and get our name out there, and they've just been so awesome. I just wanted to make sure everybody knew about Kitsy's new endeavor called the Get Scared Podcast, and she has a really nice voice too. It's really good.
All right, so I gotta ask: is it her just telling the stories, or is this like a character acting thing?
She does pretty well, but she doesn't go. There is definitely inflection changes where she will attempt to kind of capture the character itself, but she doesn't go hardcore into it because it's just her reading throughout the entire thing.
Okay.
So
I was just wondering because I listened to the No Sleep podcast, and I didn't know if it was like that or just her reading.
Yeah, less radio play, more audiobook.
Cool.
Where it's pretty much her. So she'll have inflections to indicate different characters, and she definitely ups the energy in high energy moments, and she does it really, really well. And she's got a nice voice too, I have to admit.
Awesome.
So
That's really cool.
Really honored. Yeah, it's very cool. I was honored to be a part of it, and she's always been so supportive of us. I just want to make sure that we give her new podcast a shout out. You can check them out, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can follow them on Twitter, follow them on Week in Horror. And, of course, obviously, check out Oddity Files. Really, really cool paranormal investigation show. And also kind of a historical show because they go really big into the history of the places that they investigate. Very, very cool. Very, I would say, a standout amongst all the plethora of paranormal bullshit that's out there. They're a cut above. They're really sharp, really professional, and really smart. So definitely give them a watch and a listen. And Eugene, you've got some news.
Yeah, so, you're not the only one making a splash in the horror community. It was a film I directed. I think I mentioned on here a couple episodes ago. It's a horror film I directed called The Sacrifice, and it got into actually another film festival called Reels of the Dead. And it's a 2-day film festival that's just nothing but horror films. And so it's just 2 days straight. It's actually taking place in Atlanta, Georgia. So if you're in that area, it's over at the Sheridan Hotel. They're hosting it. Go ahead and check it out. They have a website for any kind of fellow filmmakers. They're on filmfreeway.com. But it's just them, and they want to showcase some upcoming horror filmmakers. So they have short films there. They have features there. But it's 2 days. It's going on from February 7th and February 8th. So check it out that weekend. It's going to be awesome. It is. It's really, really excited to get in. And I'm really excited the fact that they're able to showcase my work there.
That's so awesome, dude. That sucks. I'm going to be in Georgia the 23rd.
Oh, that sucks.
For 2 weeks. And I'd be within driving distance of Atlanta.
Dude, that is seriously fucking cool, man.
That's so cool.
I'm super excited about it. So the film has actually been able to start picking up momentum, and it's getting more accepted into more and more festivals. So it's I'm excited about it.
man, Eugene's gonna get all fucking famous and sign like a net. He's gonna sign like a Netflix deal and be like, I remember I was doing a podcast.
I started the podcast back in the day.
Like, yeah, we're all still here doing the podcast. Be like, yeah, and remember when Eugene was on? Yeah, he's out there doing Netflix shit now.
And with me, as always, is Alex and Eugene. Come back,
Baby, come back.
Ooh, baby.
Yeah. Well, dude, Eugene, that is fucking amazing, dude. That's awesome. You know, that doesn't happen to everybody, and you know, the sacrifice was amazing, and it's very cool to see it go on, man. I wish that a long life on the festival circuit.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely.
That means a lot. I'm really excited about it.
Hey, and you can do a shameless plug on the Weekend Horror Facebook page, maybe, if you want to drop like a link to it or something. Get it rolling.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not posted up just yet because it is on the film festival circuit. Once I get the kind of the later on this year, once it finally gets like through all the film festivals, then I'll post it up and I'll have a link on the Weekend Horror page so people can check it out. It's only like 4 minutes long, but you know, it's a terrifying 4 minutes. So
obviously they keep showing it.
Yeah.
Yes. You know, before we kick into our films, there is something that came up, and I want to get your guys' opinion on it, because this is an interesting story that just came down, and because we're here in Texas, and anybody who's a horror fan in Texas knows that the premier horror convention is Texas Frightmare Weekend.
Yes.
Annual convention held at the Hyatt Regency. Used to be at the I think over in Irving, but now is here at the Hyatt Regency at DFW, and you know, it's a huge event. All manner of stars come out. They've been doing it for 15 years. I think 2020 is their 15th year, and you know, I used to do press for them back in the day. To get to go there and meet a lot of really cool celebrities and everything. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because this recently hit the newswire that the Hyatt Regency and the people behind Texas Frightmare Weekend are being sued currently.
Oh.
And they're being sued by none other than Meatloaf. So, apparently, last year, in 2019 one, I think Meatloaf did an appearance doing autographs and stuff like that, doing a meet and greet and stuff like this. And apparently, there was like a stage set up, and he was on it. And when he was on the stage, the way they had the stage draped is that, according to Meatloaf, this is him, is that allegedly they had the stage draped in such a way that with a curtain, with this black velvet curtain, that he was not able to determine where the stage ended exactly, and when he went to walk off the stage, he misstepped.
Yeah, he fell
fell off the stage. Yes, and apparently injured himself very badly, and has publicly stated that this injury, because he said he was in the hospital for like some 40 some odd days. I think it was like 42 days. And, broke his collarbone and all kinds of it's just a really nasty fall because he wasn't prepared for it. And he's getting up there in age. I think he's in his 70s. And so, he fell and he hurt himself. And now he is suing Texas Frightmare Weekend, the people behind it. And of course the hotel itself for putting it on. He's suing the venue. For this happening. And, this is... Meatloaf Today is not just, any celebrity. This is a rock legend who's got bank and has got lawyers behind him. This is huge, and the reason I wanted to bring it up is because in this situation, we don't know who's right, okay? So, we know what Meatloaf is alleging, and we can attest. I have a lot of friends who go there regularly, and a lot of people who work staff there, and they confirmed that was the way that the stage was set up. Is that it was literally just like a stand-up riser setup, and there was a black kind of cloth that was hung from the ceiling that kind of draped the whole thing in the back to create kind of a black backdrop so you could focus on Meatloaf. And the way they had it tucked around, you could mistake that because the stage itself, the riser setup, was also black. So, I don't know. This may be a bad situation for TFW.
I mean, that would be really bad. And like you said, he's really well staffed. It's not like he's hurting for anything. He's getting up there. He's kind of done. I'm sure he's sitting super comfortable. So he's not just suing it to get money. Like, maybe this was an issue. Maybe they're like, well, it was your fault, and he wants to make sure that other people don't have the same issue. And so he's like advocating. So like, it's really, we're not going to know until this goes through the whole system. And I mean, I don't think he would just like be suing for money, try to get cash, especially not Texas Frightmare.
Yeah, I think predominantly he's saying that he's suing because the injuries that he sustained and his time in the hospital pretty much ended his singing career.
Yeah.
Oh.
Is what he's claiming. Now, he can still act and everything, and obviously he can still walk around, he's still good, but at his age, with the injuries he suffered, that his singing career as Meatloaf is pretty much over. There's no way.
And this is why, and it's interesting you brought it up, because this is something that, I've done for a living. I've gone to hotels and I've set up stages and stuff like that, and like the velvet backdrop and stuff. I know exactly what you're talking about. And that's why there's so many rules and regulations, in terms of clearly marking steps. Any kind of cables that go over doorways, you have striped tape that goes, you try to go over doorways. There's so many things. And I'm not saying, I'm not there. I wasn't there. I'm not saying who's right or who's wrong in this, because I don't know, kind of thing. But, this is something could have been neglect, maybe trying to hurry up and something like that, which easily could have happened. But this is why we have to follow all these rules. This is why it takes so long to set up that stuff, to prevent stuff like that.
Yeah, my first two words when I heard about this were, someone forgot the gaffer tape.
Yep.
I was like, there's a reason we use it.
Somebody at the beginning of setup was like, shit, I forgot the tape.
Someone didn't set their shit up right.
It's going to be fine. These guys are professionals.
This is why we strike tape stages, so that people don't fall off prosceniums and shit.
You got that guy making $12 an hour. He saw a meatloaf fall and go, well, shit.
I gotta go.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. All right, I'm out.
Would you
He's
look
like,
at the
what's
time?
what's that SpongeBob meme? Yeah, I'm gonna head out. Oh, to be the person who ended Meatloaf a Day's career on his singing career. That's an ignominious title.
He's
You would have to
already
change your name, go into witness protection program.
Oh, I feel bad because Texas Frightmare, where it's gotten quite large, they pretty much run season to season. So the vast majority of the money that they take in is what sets up for the next one. And this is a hugely expensive event, and they have all these vendors coming in who all pay for those spaces. So the success of each one pretty much informs the next one. And then, of course, the celebrities come in and they have their spaces, and they're allowed to they collect all their money for their autographs and their photo ops and stuff like that, and the whatever merch they sell. But something like this could break TFW. Could if he goes after him hard and finds that they're a court finds that they're negligent, because from what I read, it doesn't sound like he's in the mood to settle out of court.
I mean, yeah, it sounds like he's just trying to make things right.
Yeah, and there's a lot of from social media wise. He's getting a lot of flack for going off it. It's like, well, why weren't you watching where you're going? Or I can't believe this. Why would you sue him? Blah 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 blah. But them's the breaks. You fuck up, you fuck up.
And this is why I'm hoping that they have good production insurance take care of this. I mean, this is festival insurance is a thing, because I want the situation to be righted, but at the same time, I don't want the festival to go away because of that. Because, I mean, Texas Frightmare Weekend, that's a festival for us. I want to go to it this year, kind of thing. And so, us going to it, maybe a chance to meet us or something like that, and then all of a sudden it's canceled, and then all the horror fans are upset about it.
That would suck. That would suck balls. That would be so terrible. Because one of the short-term goals, or I would say it's a long-term goal. One of the goals that we have here at Week in Horror is eventually I would hope to be be able to do a live podcast at a convention and have like audience interaction and have fun with it like that and just do cool shit. And I think that would be a blast. Just kind of like a bonus, we could do like a bonus episode. We could have audiences, like people who come in and watch, we could have their interactions, maybe have celebrities on as well. That would be neat. But if Meatloaf kills TFW, I'm going to be really sad.
It's not going to work out. I don't think he will. You're talking about insurance. I was just thinking of a farmer's insurance commercial where it was like Meatloaf falling off a stage. We've seen it.
Now, Eugene, you've had some experience with that, so I got to ask real quick before we move on. In that respect, in doing that setup with the insurance that they have, sure, the insurance might be able to take care of it, but that will obviously see a premium increase. A substantial premium increase at that, right?
Yeah, it could. The whole point of having insurance is obviously for something like that, so to hopefully prevent the festival from going down. But a lot of times what happens is they'll cover little small stuff kind of thing. But if depending on who the insurance carrier is, I don't know who it is, if it starts breaking the insurance carrier, sometimes they'll come back and go back to the festival itself kind of thing. And so that's when it can get scary. So it's like, they'll cover everything from Meatloaf, but then the insurance coming back and suing the festival itself kind of thing.
They can't just, you'd have to increase ticket prices. That would be like the only way to take care of something like that.
That's right, because if the insurance company finds that they were negligent, and they find in favor of Meatloaf, then Meatloaf gets his payday, and then it may kill TFW.
Yeah, and these huge conventions, a lot of them operate for a loss at a long time, and it's the kind of thing, they don't make as much money as you think once you pay out the vendors, and you pay out the celebrities, and you pay out all this other kind of stuff, and the venue and all this other kind of stuff. A lot of these festivals, I know Coachella, the very first one, they lost $800,000 on it when it's said and done, and they sold tickets, and they didn't have any problem selling tickets. So when it comes to these huge things, something like this I hope it doesn't. And I hope they're able to, write and figure out who's at fault and it gets taken care of and everything. But it could kill it.
I don't know. I mean, it's been around for so long, and they have so many big names there. I think the horror community is so tight that even if that were to come down the line to where they, couldn't operate because this took such a big chunk of their revenue, I think there'd be other people in the community that would help out, probably keep it going. I mean, like you said, it's been 15 years. Like, you get some big names out at Texas Frightmare.
Oh yeah.
And the thing is like a lot of people in the horror community are so generous. They love interacting with fans. We're not talking, Disney coming in with like Marvel or Star Wars or anything like that. But I mean, you just have people who just genuinely love their work and they love interacting with the community. And a lot of those celebrities come in and do it at a discount just to interact with fans. So just to show how tight the community is.
Yeah, it's such an excellent promotional point too. I mean, that kind of plug, you can't buy that kind of marketing exposure. So I don't know. Hopefully the bat out of hell will not kill Texas Frightmare Weekend, because from what I understand, he is pissed. So hopefully this will not turn ugly, and
Meatloaf,
TFW
if you're listening,
can survive it.
Let's keep everything civil. We love
Civil,
you.
straightforward.
You've been a part of my life, my whole life.
We know you do anything for love, but please don't do this.
Oh my god. Solid.
Oh, all right.
On that note,
Segue.
Good segue. All right. So Eugene, why don't you kick us off? What have we got this week?
So the first movie we have this week is the movie Teeth, which came out January 19th, 2008. Right, directed by Mitchell Lichtenstein, right, written by also Mitchell Lichtenstein, starring Jess Wexler, John Hensley, and Josh Pius, right, and it is about a high school girl who develops teeth in her lady bits.
You can say vagina,
but I wanted to say lady bits.
We're all technically adults.
In her vajayjay.
in her vagina. So she actually develops teeth, and they go into the condition and everything like that. And it actually has the ability to bite things and bite things off. And I'll let your imagination go to certain scenarios where she bites things off. And of course, most of the people are deserving. Right. It definitely has a couple of underlined messages in terms of like sexual assault and everything like that. But then also it has just biting things off.
That's just terrible, and it hurts me to think about this. Why are we talking about this?
That's a strong message of female empowerment.
It really is. And you're talking about how she develops these teeth. Vagina dentata is actually the Latin phrase for toothed vagina.
Oh my god!
And so it's something that has come up like in folklore, and the stories have been passed down as far as I can tell, just the general, it's to prevent rape. And so like you see this brought up, this Latin word is brought up in like Hinduism, and there's legends in South America, Shinto legends. It goes back as like a warning to be like, this is a thing that could happen. Don't rape people because women have teeth in their vagina. And it kind of got out of control for a while. And it's so crazy that they ended up making a movie about it. But there's an actual medical, like you were talking about, she develops these teeth. There's actually like a medical instance called Dermoid Cysts that can form. A lot of times it's in like ears, but it can form in the lady bits, and they're like, like these hard bumps. They don't quite look like teeth, but I guess if you were, trying to make it scary, you could be like, yeah, see, they grow teeth. Look right here. And so it's something that they've used in folklore to deter sexual assault, and it's worked. It's stayed around. They've talked about it until when they made this movie back in 2008. It was still being passed around as legends and folklores in these communities, and it's like a feminist movement almost.
I think in this particular film, there were a lot of backdrop shots, or there were a lot of like wide shots, or I should say establishing shots where there were nuclear silos in the background. That the neighborhood that the protagonist was living in was right near a nuclear power plant, and so I know they were pushing the concept of nuclear mutation. That the reason that she was born with these teeth, because there's an epic scene at the beginning of it when her stepbrother. We should say they're both children. They're both playing in a little wading pool, and her stepbrother assaults her and gets bitten for his trouble, and the constant backdrop of of nuclear power and like nuclear mutation and shit like that plays throughout the film to kind of give you the sense of how this happened to her, but then goes dives deep into the psychology of this. And I swear to God, those interspliced scenes from that 50s horror, that black and white horror film that she was watching, the big mouth and everything.
Oh, it's like the scorpion thing or whatever creature it was on it. Yeah,
that's right. And then every time she wanted to look down there, all she could imagine was But it was serious, man. When I think because I think they find one of the teeth broke out at one of the crime scenes, and they said it was similar to it was more similar to a lamprey than it was like a lamprey tooth instead of like human or anything like that. So, but a crazy little film. I love this film. I absolutely adore it.
It was, the whole concept was super cool. It was definitely like they were like nailing so many different points and then making a different kind of movie. It's not something that, like, I was trying to research other movies about it, and there's definitely like little short films and stuff about it, but there's no, like, nobody really covers this folklore, this tale of the toothed vagina. There's a Latin word for it. Obviously, it's been talked about for a long time in lots of places.
I think the only time there was an old horror movie with James Earl Jones and Brad Dourif, where they played two travelers in the Old West that where they meet around a campfire and they tell scary stories to one another. And God, I can't remember the name of it. It's a freaky little film, and one of the stories had a woman who ate men with her vagina. She seduced them and then consumed them entirely. And then she was making her way through the prairie and like that, and it looked like she was pregnant. And so that would keep people from attacking her and everything. But that was something. It was really, really fucking freaky. I'm a man. But I wish I could remember the name of that movie. That will click at some point.
It's just, but I just remember the scene where, like, she bit it off one time and stood up, and you see it like drop. And it was just, but it was something, it was a unique premise because, no one's touched on it before. Obviously, it has a staying effect because people are still talking about this film. I mean, this, not just us right now at this moment, but people continue talking about a film 10 plus years later. And that says something about the film. It has staying power.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, Grim Prairie Tales. That was the name of it.
Grim Prairie Tales.
I knew it would click. Grim Prairie Tales with Brad Dourif and James Earl Jones. A really underrated little horror film.
When did that come out?
But 1990, I think. Huh. So yeah, but really just fun. Just watching James Earl Jones and Brad Dourif sit around a campfire and share horror stories, share scary stories, and then of course when they tell the story, it goes and they actually act it out. There's actually like they play it out as part of the movie, but it's really, really sharp, really, really good stuff. But Eugene's right, mentioning a movie like this, and so the lasting power of that, and because Teeth falls into what I think is a totally underserved subgenre of feminist horror, in that it breaks away from the typical horror tropes of women in horror, where women play victims, where women play specific two-dimensional roles, whereas where the journey that we're following along is one of self-discovery, one of the fear of one's own body, kind of an allegory for puberty in that respect, because she's coming up, and her first sexual encounter, as is what's terrible for many women in this world, her first sexual encounter is one against her will. And she just luckily has this ability to defend herself in that respect. That both horrifies her victim, obviously, and horrifies her. And so, but she grows into a powerful figure. She's able to accept who she is and use it to her advantage, and realize that she can control, when she attacks people, when she doesn't attack people. And it's a brilliant film in respect that it's one of the few entries into what I believe to be feminist horror. I think It Follows is also an entry into that, where the strength of the character, where she is the one who's going to lead everybody out of this. She's the one who's going to come up with the solution in the end to figure this out, and where she's put in a situation. That's why, and I wish there was more of this, where real, true horror films, legitimate horror films, made use of their made use of female actresses, throw away the bullshit tropes, the things that one-dimensionally, pigeonhole our women, or pigeonhole women, okay? And then, allow them to explore these characters like this. We need more, Ripleys, more Sarah Connors. We need more of this. And I think this one definitely plays into it. It's definitely a strong example of what can be successfully done in horror. I wish more directors, would take this shit on.
Absolutely, because the thing is as horror has been moving towards smarter and smarter films, I'd like to see more. We talk about movies like Hush and You're Next, You have these smart women who are able to fight back, who are able to take control of the situation, kind of thing. And I'm hoping, as going forward into the 20s, I just wanted to say that the 20s, that we're gonna see it explode, kind of thing, where it's this no longer like, oh, we have the one-dimensional woman character. You either have like the final girl, the over-sexualized one, right, and kind of, or then like the victim, and that's pretty much how it's been for a long period of time. I was like, no, let's get more Buffy the Vampire Slayer kind of thing.
Fuck yes.
Let's see some more. There's obviously a market for it because all these films have been successful. So let's see some more of that coming up.
Can I just throw it out there? Can we see some more like Michelle Rodriguez? Maybe in some horror roles?
Yeah, exactly.
We need it, and there needs to be more directors and more producers and more studios willing to take those kinds of risks. It can't be the handful that do. It can't be indie. It can't always be indie to push the boundaries, because stuff like Hush, stuff like You're Next, Teeth, all of these are all they're essentially independent films. But it can't just be Cameron. It can't just be Ridley Scott. It can't just be Joss Whedon, who gives us these strong, powerful women that are just as capable, if not more so, than the men around them. There's got to be more than one person willing to make another Buffy. And I wish it was more. Maybe I hope you're right. I hope in the 20s we see more entries into this, and not, not more. We don't need more spit on your graves. Okay.
No.
We need more. We need more Hush.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We need stuff like that.
We really do. And this is actually what I want to ask the audience. What is your favorite strong woman in horror? Not just the final girl who just happens to make it towards the very end, but who's your favorite horror woman that like kicks ass, that takes control of the situation, that others depend on her for their survival and pulls through? Like, who are some of your favorite female characters that do that in horror? Let us know in the comments below.
I'm going to say Aaliyah in Queen of the Damned.
God, that was such a good movie.
Oh, interesting choice.
Because she took no fucking prisoners whatsoever.
Good choice.
I gotta give some props to my girl Aaliyah. Yo, rest in peace, baby. But she kicked ass in that one. That was, you don't get more powerful than that. So, definitely.
So, all right, Alex, what do we have next?
All right, next up on the list, we have The House on Sorority Row. It came out January 21st, 1983. Written and directed by Mark Rossman. This one features Kay McNeil, Aline Davidson, Janice Ward, Robin Melroy, a lot of other names that I haven't ever seen again after this movie, honestly. But this is a movie about... This is a good slasher one. It takes place in, I think, June of 1961, and there is a group of sorority girls right after graduation staying in this house. The house is owned by a woman who goes through an extremely traumatic experience and kind of leaves. She's at a hospital, and then she leaves the hospital. She wants to go back to the house. She owns the sorority house that the girls are staying in. She gets there, is like, hey, I want to stay at my house, and they won't leave. They're throwing a big after graduation party, and then she gets mad, and so they decide that they're going to pull a prank on this woman, and things go horribly wrong, and they try to cover it up, but somebody or something has seen the crime, and all of a sudden these sorority girls, one by one, kind of get picked off, and it's one of those, not another teen movie like, oh man, there's going to be another one of those, but I think there was seriously. But I mean, and even how things go down when the prank goes wrong, I was like, really? But at the same time, I thought this was actually a pretty good movie. This is definitely one that I would watch again.
Well, it's definitely a classic. It's up there, coming in the heyday, 1983, coming in the heyday of pretty much slasher films. on the tail end, we got Halloween, we got Nightmare on Elm Street, came out in '84, I think a year after this, and then Friday the 13th, and a slew of others that were just copies, so like that. I do enjoy the clown sequence at the end, which was really, really neat. I thought that was really effective. The final girl fight in the end.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I think what's most interesting was where this movie came from, because Halloween. Sure, there was scary stuff that may have inspired the story, but Halloween, Friday the 13th, others are kind of themselves. They're kind of like, they kind of stand by themselves. In that respect, they weren't really inspired from anything specifically, whereas House and Sorority Row surprisingly was. In 1955, there was a French film, a French kind of horror thriller called Les Diaboliques, and then House and Sorority Row was pretty much based directly off of that one, and Les Diaboliques is an infamous 1955 French film where the plot is a woman and her husband's mistress plot together to kill the husband. And when they commit the act, soon after the body disappears, and then a bunch of really crazy shit starts happening around them. And so they begin to suspect, is he actually dead? What's going on? And like this. I don't want to spoil any twists like this, because this was epic, because Les Diaboliques was actually also the inspiration to Alfred Hitchcock to do Psycho.
God, I love how all those movies are intertwined. That's so cool.
Yeah, and so Les Diaboliques was a fantastic little film, black and white, directed by Henry Georges Clouzot, and it was in turn based on a novel by Below Narjek called She Who Was No More. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that title in French. That one is a monster.
Come on.
But it was one of the highest grossing films in the globally that year, and it was a French film. Because at that time in the 50s, Europe was experimenting more and pushing the envelope when it came to adaptations, thrillers, horror, and stuff like that. So, and doing basically the psychological aspects, like psychological thrillers, were pushed way harder in Europe before they ever found steam here in America. Because you had thrillers and then you had mysteries, and Americans took to mysteries a little bit more, which is why the stuff that came before Psycho, Hitchcock, are pretty much mystery thrillers, or Agatha Christie and stuff like that. And in Europe, they really pushed the mind, and that probably was from the influence of Carl Jung and Freud and so many great psychotherapists who came out of Europe. Kind of entrench that in European mentality. So they were willing to go further, to go into, psychologically scary shit and push that envelope. And then eventually America picked it up after that. But a really, really excellent inspiration there. And I highly recommend any movie buffs, especially if you dig, 1950s stuff when people just went for broke. Definitely check out Les Diaboliques. So you'll definitely enjoy that.
Really interesting. Really interesting. Now, one of the things about this film is the fact that it has kind of this unresolved ending, because she goes and she stabs. Spoiler alert.
There it is. Okay, I was like, man, you're just gonna jump right into that, huh?
So so she attacks the bad guy, Eric, and he goes and he falls through the attic door, right? And she, is passed out with exhaustion, and then you kind of see his eyes open, and then, the film just ends. So it's not like you got that resolution of, oh, okay, well, the bad guy's finally dead, and the good guy had won. It kind of started experimenting, and there were a couple other films around the same time, The Thing, John Carpenter's Thing, that I think came out the year before, 1982.
Ah, yes.
Yes. It's still one of my personal favorite horror films of all time. But
John Carpenter was big on the unresolved ending, and going back over his filmography, he did it with The Thing, he did it with Prince of Darkness, he did it with Christine, where we've gotten through round one, but now it's time for round two, and then the movie ends. And it's, what happened? What happened to our protagonist? Or like this. John Carpenter really seized on that.
And because the thing is like it gets your audience talking. When you get those unresolved films, one of the first things that happens after me and my friends go see it is the fact we talk about it. It's like, oh, well, did you think it's over? Or he's always come back? What's going to happen after that? And the fact that you're able to talk about it means you want to watch it again because it's like, oh, now I want to watch it again. Because sometimes, I know the film Inception was like this, sometimes you'll put in clues. And so it's like, okay, now I got to go back and I need to rewatch it. So to see if there's maybe any kind of clues or sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't, just depending on the film itself. But it stays in your mind.
See, did this one did it make you mad or were like? See, when I saw the end of the movie, I was like, wow, okay, that was good. You know, obviously it was unresolved, but it was like you can put your own ending on it. There's a lot of movies that you'll see like the end of the movie and you're like, really? That's where you're gonna leave it? And there's never a sequel, and then you're mad for 14 years. I'm not gonna name names of the movies, but yeah.
Yes, yeah. You could always pull a Ninth Gate. And
I knew you were gonna bring up this movie.
Oh, son of a bitch! You talk about unresolved bullshit. Fuck that goddamn movie.
Yeah, but that was one of those ones I'm talking about. Like you have no idea. You can't even put your own ending on that.
This is true. This is absolutely true.
Nothing that you come up with is going to make any sense ever.
I was going to say, like, there's no way to end it, like, at all. It's just not there.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's intriguing. I like the idea in that John Carpenter seized on that, and he started doing it in he did it in Halloween because, you know, Michael Myers escaped at the end of that, and so he's still at large. But the idea of using that, I like how you put it up, of using it as kind of like a word-of-mouth technique, where the unresolved ending inspires conversation, and that conversation in turn works in the film's favor. So, did the marketing ploy become the trope, or did the trope become the marketing ploy? Is kind of interesting.
That's actually a really good question, because I think sometimes, like on certain films, I felt like it fit. Like with The Thing, I feel like the story concluded. Like it almost felt like if a helicopter came in and like, you're saved, blah 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 blah, it wouldn't fit, because especially with The Thing, because that movie is so contained in one area, and so it's like almost anything. It's like you get the helicopter, because even the helicopter comes in the beginning and it gets shot down and stuff like that. It's like anything outside of that one world just wouldn't fit. That's their world. That's their area. That's it.
Interesting. And I'm pretty sure that the ending that we got, the theatrical ending on House on Sorority Row, was not the original, if I remember correctly.
It was not. There was definitely another ending, and honestly, like, go watch the movie. I don't want to like spoil
the other ending.
Yeah. So like, that's something I can ask the audience to do. Go watch this movie. It's a good slasher. It's one of those like Friday night, if you're not going out, grab some, drinks and watch this classic, sorority. It's a good one. But watch the ending and then find the original ending. And I want to know your thoughts on both, because I'm very swayed towards the original ending, even though, like you said, the whole unresolved thing. It was a mess at the end, but there's definitely a lot of discussion to be had there. So go check it out. Let's talk about it. Hit us in the comments. Email us. I want to know. All right, so we're going to move into our third movie for tonight with JL.
Yes, we've got The Stepfather, released January 23rd, 1987. A fantastic little creeper horror fest, directed by Joseph Rubin and screenplay by Donald Westlake, starring Terry O'Quinn and Jill Sholin and Shelley Hack. A story that follows a serial killer who basically swaps identities as he moves from family to family to family. And the story follows along with this killer and the recent family that he has acquired by slinking in, seducing the mom, and eventually marrying her and becoming the stepfather to the kids. And of course, as it has done time and time again, it slowly descends into chaos as his true nature comes out, as he grows comfortable and people start figuring out who he really is and what he's really about, and then the bodies start dropping. So a terrific little film. One of Terry O'Quinn's best performances. I absolutely love him in this movie, and because he plays it up, you never really know, who anyone is. It's such a scary thought.
I love this saying, and it's been in several movies and all sorts of kind of stuff, and it's a proverb from somewhere. But I love the saying. It's like you can live with somebody for 40 years, and then you pick them up and you hang them over a volcano, and at that moment you meet the real man. Because like we don't know. I mean, how many times have we seen like in news reports, of something terrible happening or something like that, and people are like, oh well, I went to school with him, I'm friends with him, parents or something like that related to him. They're like, man, I never even saw it coming, kind of thing. So it's that mystery. We don't know. Like, do we really know anybody?
You don't. And you know what? I can actually cut in with a real life story here. So I don't know if you guys remember, and I'm terribly sorry to everybody that was involved with it. I don't remember the year that it happened, but in the town that I lived in Minnesota, um, there was a famous murder, and they called it the Craigslist Killer. Um, a couple miles from my house, there was a guy that I went to high school, I was in shop class with, that I spent every day for 2 semesters, my sophomore year of high school with, that after high school, he put an ad out on Craigslist for a nanny and pretended like he was a mom with kids, and this woman responded, and she was young, and responded and showed up to the house to like, have like a discussion about the kids and stuff. And he answered the door and was like, yeah, my mom's upstairs. And as she was walking up the stairs, he took a revolver and shot her in the back, killed her, put her in the trunk of the car, and left it 2 miles from my house. And it was a nationwide news story. And yeah, so like I'd gone to high school with this guy. I talked to him pretty much every day for 2 semesters. And so yeah, you absolutely have no idea who people are. It's something that just happens. And this is a real life story from me. And this movie, when you say this stepfather moved from family to family, this was actually based off of a real life. They call him a serial killer, mass murderer. This guy John List, back in 1971, he killed his wife, killed his mom, and then his 2 kids. His daughter Patricia was 16 and his son Frederick was 13. He killed his entire family and then meticulously covered up every aspect of the whole thing and fled and started a new life somewhere else. It took a month for the police to even realize that anything had happened. And so these murders were so meticulously planned out, and he was on the run for 18 years before they finally caught up to him. So this was back in 1971, and he was on the run for 18 years, and then he actually passed away back in 2008. So this is like a real life thing. This guy, he was living with his wife, his children, his mother is at the house, and he just decides that he's going to kill him. And he had gone completely mentally, obviously broken, and his excuse for it was he killed his family so that he could ensure that they would get into heaven. And so this guy completely twisted. These kids are 16 years old, was the oldest kid. So for 16 years, this woman had this husband and they had this family, and then one day he just caps every single one of them and runs off and starts a new life. That is absolutely terrifying. Because like you said, you have absolutely no idea who somebody really is. It could be anybody. These people were happily married for a long time, and yeah, he took a 9 millimeter and a 22, and yeah, popped his kids. And there was a third kid who was 15.
And I mean, if going, off of that, one of the TV shows I like to watch occasionally from there, it's like the First 48, which they actually film in Dallas. And the thing is, it's something like 80 to 90% of all murders, the victim knows the killer. You really don't have like, oh, I'm just gonna kick open a random door and shoot somebody. So it's like all those murder victims out there on some level know the person who's gonna do it. Not to make anybody paranoid or anything, but as everybody
First
starts
of all,
looking
check
around.
on your friends. If they don't seem like they're doing all right, they're probably not. Second of all, you know, we've got the internet. We've got Google. Fucking background check your Tinder date, bro. Like, just it doesn't have to be just men when they're crazy too.
It does. It goes both ways.
It's a scary trope, and I think is played very, very effectively, especially when you have real life, real life subjects like Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, up in your neck of the woods, not Minnesota but Wisconsin, Ed
Fucking
Gein.
Ed Gein. Yo,
Yep.
my
Yep.
fiance used to live like 2 miles from where he committed all those heinous crimes.
See, this is
Horrendous.
wild. And there was a couple others that the Stepfather reminded me of, where it was, one was a horror film, 1984, which was a very, very effective little 80s style film, shot a couple years ago. That one was good because, I don't want to spoil anything about that one because that one had a really, really nice twist in it and was a really good setup. But 1984 was an excellent one. And I think there was one with Dermot Mulroney called The Clovitch Killer, which also played off that trope. You never really know who someone is. Definitely with things like the BTK killer, in Kansas, guy's a church deacon, guy who runs Boy Scouts, is a I guess he was a surveyor for the city, a pillar of the community. Turns out Dennis Rader was the bind, torture, kill serial killer.
Yeah, because
For over
Such a
20
nuts
years.
he's like buried some of his victims like in his wife's garden,
Yeah.
kind of thing. It's just one of those things like, oh, whatever story he told his family at the time, but I mean, they had bodies in their backyard for years, and the rest of the family didn't even know.
Yeah, wild shit. So, Tara Quinn puts in a masterful performance. I absolutely love in the very first one when things start deteriorating, and he's the big epic climax is happening, and then all of a sudden, right in the smack in the middle of this giant climax, where everybody's fearing for their lives, and he's completely lost his fucking mind. He calls his son by a different name, and the kid's like, "What?" It was like, "What?" And then for a second there, Tara Quinn just dissociates. The character just completely dissociates, and is like, "Who am I here?" Like I have no idea. Like he's done this so many times that he gets them mixed up, and sometimes when he flies into a rage, he can't remember who he is. So, really, it was that one line that solidified just how badass this dude was. But Stepfather saw it was a trilogy, and Tara Quinn played the titular serial killer in the first two films, and then they found a new one for the third new actor for the third one. But I gotta ask, that's my question to the audience: of the Stepfather series, which one was your favorite? The first one where we get introduced to the character, the second one where he continues his reign of terror, or the third one. In my personal opinion, not the strongest, but maybe you dug it more. Let us know. I want to know in the comments, what was your favorite of the Stepfather trilogy? Part 1, Part 2, or Part 3? And no, we're not. Don't chime in on the remake because that remake was junk. So just stick with the original trilogy. I'd like to know what your favorite one is.
Yeah, what remake?
Oh, there was a remake of
No,
it.
I know.
Okay. And so, Eugene, you've got us next.
Yes. So we have the next film we have, right? Our fourth one is a movie called Phantoms, which came out January 23rd, 1998.
Yes.
Directed by Joe Chappelle, right? And it's starring Peter O'Toole, Rose McGowan, Ben Affleck, right? And to give you a premise on it, it takes place at Snowfield, Colorado, is under attack by an evil spirit. So we're gonna go less real. I know the last couple of movies we talked about focus on these real topics. So we're gonna go a little bit more supernatural. But it's an evil spirit that almost wipes out an entire population and possessing other ones, right? And you have the local law enforcement, like Ben Affleck's Sheriff Bryce Hammond and Peter O'Toole, are investigating and trying to figure out what is going on. So it's a little interesting. It's a little interesting movie. My mom is actually a huge Dean Koontz fan and has read all of his books. So she was really excited when the movie came out.
Which is like, you talk about Dean Koontz, but he wasn't a horror writer. At least he didn't consider himself a horror writer. And so after he wrote Whispers in 1980, which was huge because this dude is like a best-selling author. And
arguably,
so,
Whispers, arguably one of his best books.
Absolutely.
To any of our listeners, if you have not read, I can recommend Whispers. I can recommend Watchers.
Yeah, Watchers was good.
Watchers was fantastic. And the Odd Thomas series.
He's such a good like best-selling author. I literally was cleaning my truck and I pulled out one of his books from underneath my seat in my truck. Like I just have him laying around. Like he's so great. Go read all of his stuff. But after Whispers, which like you said was like probably one of his best books. I would say probably my favorite to read. He came out with Phantoms because they were pushing him to write a horror novel, and it ended up being an awesome book. It's super scientific. You're engaged the whole time. It's always interesting. And then, you've got like, the characters are great. The character development is great. And Satan is straight up like the villain in the book. And it really plays on a lot of things. I never got bored reading the book, but then you get the movie and they really, really dumbed it down. And not just because Ben Affleck was in it, but
Affleck was the bomb. One of us was gonna say it.
I was waiting for you to pop that out. But yeah,
Phantoms.
It wasn't like a terrible movie, but I didn't even completely. They even touched really well on a lot of it. They dumbed it down. They could have taken a stronger stance on a lot of like the scientific stuff and the intelligent stuff, but they kind of went mainstream. And I think maybe because of the time period when they were just trying to knock out these like blockbuster hits. I don't know. I thought that reading the book, because I read the book after I saw the movie, and when we were talking about this in the beginning, I had forgotten about the whole thing, and then I was like, oh yeah, I read that book, and it was one of those ones that you're completely engaged in the whole time, and I feel like you kind of lost that through the movie. You got a A-list, cast on this, you got all these, famous people, but then they just didn't quite get it right.
And see, that's one of the things where it comes with going the safe route. Well, we got to make sure the audience understands everything, and so we got to go and dumb it down for everybody. But I think it's the same year as like Good Will Hunting came out, kind of thing. And you have other movies like Gattaca and stuff like that are these super intelligent movies. And it's like it's okay to be smart in a movie, and a lot of times people actually appreciate that, and it becomes more thought-provoking than dumbing down everything to the point where it's like, okay, this is just retarded.
Yeah, I think Miramax sold it short, and I think they were capitalizing on, they wanted to turn it more into a horror feature instead of capitalizing on what Dean Koontz had written, which was an effectively smart little horror mystery. The book itself is is up there in my favorites of his. It's just a well developed, like Alex was saying, it's just a well developed little little book. The horror elements, the surrounding the creature, what they call the ancient enemy, is this kind of like monster, like this kind of like fluid like monster. Think kind of like the Blob, where it kind of resides underground in like petroleum, in deep petroleum deposits, and every once in a while comes up to the surface, pretty much eats anything that it can find and just devours it, and then goes back to sleep after a certain amount of time. And at one point, and Koontz had written that this thing was probably responsible for the death of the dinosaurs, where the mass disappearances throughout history, the colony at Roanoke Island, the Wushan Chinese warriors outside of China, World War, I think it was a World War I battalion that vanished, and the idea that, or the Mayans, the Mayan civilization collapse, that this thing was responsible for this throughout history, and as it ate more and more people, it got smarter and smarter and smarter and absorbed their intelligence and eventually began to think of itself as a god and unkillable, and how it attacked this small Colorado town. It came up out of the earth and wiped out everything that was around, that was in sight. And then, of course, some survivors show up, and that's where your story begins. And it was very, very unsettling. There were some extremely creepy things that went down, like body parts left places, because this thing starts toying with them and fucking with them and calling them on the phone and doing all kinds of crazy shit. And then it has the ability to create manifestations of itself that look like other things. So, where people are like, wait, you're dead. It's like, but you're up walking around. But it's actually the monster itself, creating phantoms of its victims and then using them out there in the world to scare people. And it was an effectively done little thriller. I really enjoyed the aspects of it. Then it went hard science with how they were going to kill it and how that whole concept. But Miramax threw all that out, and I think that's probably what dragged the story down. Is it's Miramax. At the time, they weren't interested in smart shit. They wanted to do, the smartest thing they think they did at the time, because this was 1998. The smartest thing they did at the time was Scream. Yeah. And so, but they had writer Kevin Williamson on it. This was a book adaptation of a horror thriller that went heavy science in the third act, and it's Miramax at the time. There's a reason, they did the films that they did, Miramax and Dimension, and it's just kind of like, what are you gonna do? And I think short-sightedness is kind of what killed it. But then again, for some reason, Dean Koontz has never had good luck in getting his films adapted. I think the only good adaptation of a Koontz book was Odd Thomas with the late Anton Yelchin.
That was a great movie, yeah.
That was a fantastic film, and he nailed it because Anton was a fantastic actor. We lost him way too soon. But that was a fantastic movie, and I loved it. It stayed true to the book and was really, really strong. And that was the only time, because the Watchers adaptation with Corey Haim, not great. Just not
Corey Haim.
That's a horror story all on its own.
Yeah, not fantastic. This one, Phantoms, not really fantastic.
No, it really bothered me because, okay, do you remember when they were talking about the whole thing, like why... so it was about the worms, where they would put worms in a maze and...
flatworms, yeah.
Yeah, and they would figure out the maze, and then they would grind up those worms and feed them to the other worms, and then those worms would figure out the maze on the first try. And it was like, fuck, man, that's genius. Like...
Yeah, and then, that's what Koontz did. And the one thing I absolutely adore about Koontz's writing is whenever writing characters, he always writes whenever describing an environment, he always does his descriptors according to the character that's in the scene. So he writes that extremely well. Like, different people, like a cop will notice different things than, say, a gardener, than, say,
brilliant mind.
a Wall Street stockbroker. They see different things. They recognize different deals, different patterns, different colors, and he always writes so brilliantly. And it was a shame that a really fun book, did not get treated better.
Didn't stand and deliver.
We can blame Miramax for that. We're not going to blame Ben Affleck, because Ben Affleck was the bomb.
He was the bomb.
He was the bomb.
Hey, you were the bomb in Phantoms.
And then of course the fuckstick, he who will not be named, who was in charge of Miramax at the time.
Yep.
Fuck that piece of shit. I hope you burn in that
guy.
trial, and I hope you go to jail for a long fucking time. So, but yeah, it was a shame to see a really, really good book get treated so badly.
It really was, and this is actually what we want to ask the audience in the comment section below. Was Affleck the bomb? I had to throw it out there like that. I had to. I had to.
Acceptable.
Yeah, you know. Ben Affleck, I have mixed feelings about, but, you know.
Was he the bomb?
Was he the bomb in Phantoms?
He was the bomb in Phantoms, yo.
He was the bomb.
All right, I'm gonna head out and go watch Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back now. Thanks.
Thank you.
Affleck, you the bomb in Phantoms, yo.
It's a little throwback right there. Alex, what do we have next?
We are on our last film for this week. We'll come at you with The Mothman Prophecies, January 25th, 2002. Writer Richard Hatem, it might be Hatem, but I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it, and director Mark Pellington. This one stars Richard Gere. He plays the main character, John Klein, and you've got David Eigenberg, Bob Tracy, Rob Emanuel, Deborah Messing in this one. This movie follows the Mothman myth. Richard Gere plays the husband of a woman who they get in a car accident and he's unscathed, and his wife mentions something about seeing a moth-shaped creature. And then she later passes, and he kind of starts obsessing about this deal, and he ends up getting drawn to this town called Point Pleasant in West Virginia, where there had been other sightings of this Mothman, and he investigates, you know, why this Mothman always shows up during tragedies, and actually based off of a very huge, I guess you could call it a legend now, where there's pictures of a Mothman right before disasters, and even I think 9/11 was one of them, and there was like a big bridge collapse where there's pictures of this moth-like. So this one is actually something that we haven't covered before ever on the podcast, which was cryptids, you know, stuff like Bigfoot and the Chupacabra, these legends. There's not a whole lot of movies out there like that, but this one is something that has even carried into modern day. This was out in 2002, but you could pull it up on Google and find all sorts of Mothman sightings all over the world to this day.
That's what one of the reasons why I love this movie so much is it does fall into the category of true horror, and I think true horror is always more effective when there's a real life allegory or inspiration behind it, like very similar to like The Strangers or other things inspired by actual events. And even if it's a supernatural nature, I mean, that's what makes it even creepier with this particular one. But true horror always rings my bell, and I was drawn to this one just because it's a combination of true and, of course, a cryptid, and you know, based on the book written by John Klein, who investigated these reports before these strange incidences that led up to the Silver Bridge collapse, which occurred, I think, was about, I think 1967. I think is when that went down, and I think killed 60 some odd people when that collapsed. And of course, like Alex was saying, like you were saying, there were some images taken of what people think might have been the Mothman on the bridge.
That's one of the most famous pictures you'll ever see.
Yeah, just days before before the actual accident occurred. So, but definitely a legendary cryptid that they don't do a lot of film on. Bigfoot definitely gets more play than the Mothman does.
It's usually in like a comedic role though.
It really is. And
like Harry and the Hendersons.
Well, I don't know. You go on Amazon Prime, you can find a truckload of shitty Bigfoot movies.
I don't know if I want to watch those.
And I've seen some fucking bad ones. So I even saw one where there were big feet, but it turns out to be people in costumes, and they were kidnapping people so they could eat them. But typically, I mean, you got some bad Bigfoot movies out there, but Bigfoot gets the play. You don't get. It seems like that one just plays North American audiences. I don't know why, because the Mothman is highly interesting. As far as that, there's a legend behind it. You know, a legend of a wronged Native American chief who put a curse on the area, and then the tragedies that occurred around the area, then the sightings of this creature, and of course and how it's global, that this thing can be spotted or seen, or there are pictures of it just ahead of great tragedies, and I find it just enthralling in that respect. There should be more on the Mothman. That's an epic legend.
It's not even like a legend. Okay, so like I'm a firm believer in the paranormal. Like I'll put that out there. I've had more multi-person experiences than a lot of people that I know. So I'm a firm believer in there being other forces at play. And the Mothman, the prophecy, the pictures alone, especially so far back, because they go way, like you said, it was like 60 something when they were doing the bridge pictures. Like, it's not like it's stuff that can't be faked. There was no Photoshop and these like very clear images. It's just the prophecies that have been fulfilled in those exact locations. Like, hey, I just took this picture. Look, it's the Mothman. And then a couple days later, like, something goes horribly wrong. And so, like, I don't know. This one was super close to me because, like, I'm a firm believer of those types of prophecies, I guess you'd call them.
I like the themes of this movie because one of the things it talks about, and I love a couple of lines, is like, they need to explain themselves to us, and it's like, well, have you tried explaining yourself to a cockroach? We like to think of ourselves as like the big superior being on Earth kind of thing, because from our perspective we are, with everything we've done so far. And it raises a question of, what if we weren't? What if there's a being that's higher than us, and it's higher than us on a level that we can't even comprehend?
That's the thing about the universe, is we think we're the shit, but we're not. And if there is something else out there, we're not even going to be able to process it, and our heads will explode.
Yeah, we won't. Something that's so far ahead of us, like, us to a cockroach, and then you take that same scale and put us and, also we're the cockroach in that super superior higher being. It's like that saying, anything that shows up, anything that makes it to Earth that shows up here will look like magic to us. Because we can't understand. We won't comprehend.
Oh, that's why I really dig in the movie. I dig that when Klein is talking to the professor, and he comes up with that anecdote where he's like, there's a window washer up on a skyscraper that's near them, and he's like, take that window washer. Now, if there were an accident, like car accident, like 10 blocks away, he could see it, but we couldn't.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't necessarily make him smarter than us. It just means he's got a better vantage point on what's going on. He can see a little bit further than we can. And I like the notion of that. But why play games like that? That's what's scary, is like something so powerful. If there were something like that, why play games with us? Why warn us? What's the purpose behind it? What are they saying that we don't? And that's what's creepy in that respect, because what was it? Dozens of witnesses to the thing when this thing showed up in Point Pleasant?
Yeah, in Point Pleasant, yeah.
And you got people who suffer from what looked like radiation burns, people who suffered chronic, illnesses till they died, people who bled from the eyes from witnessing this thing, and people who were chased by it. But I think I read a part of it was a bunch of teenagers were chased out, or were chased from where they were parked and they were partying. And that was another creepy thing, is that the area around where the Mothman was kept sighting was an old munitions dump from World War II.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, see, there's a point where coincidence just doesn't work. How many coincidences do you need to just be like, okay, this is real? See, I say like I believe in the supernatural, but I'm also superstitious as well. So like, if somebody's like, yeah, the Mothman was filmed at this I'm not going to go to that place. Like,
yeah, no.
Like Alex, you say, why are they warning us? Why are they telling us? I mean, maybe like it's just their job in the universe, and everybody just ignores it. Like, yeah, that dude's crazy, and then a fucking bridge falls. Like, no, he wasn't crazy. He just saw something that you refused to see. And I think that's why probably cryptid type stories and movies are just, kind of brushed off because people are like, that's obviously it's made up, like it's just a thing. Look, it's a fuzzy picture, but like there's 65 fuzzy pictures, and like all these people just decided at the same thing popped up into their life. I don't know. Yeah, like I said, if somebody was like, "Hey, I think I saw the Mothman," I'm just gonna walk the other fucking
I'm
way.
done. I'm done. I'm out.
Just bye.
Okay, making a note, canceling trip to West Virginia with Alex.
Just don't ever go to West Virginia, period. But I'm just kidding.
you
Any
live
listeners
closer.
in West Virginia, it's great.
Hey man, you live closer. You live, you were from Minnesota, right?
Yeah.
Because right next door you got the Michigan Dog Man,
Oh God, yeah.
which is supposed to be a werewolf.
I'm trying to think of some other ones that we had up there because there was a lot of stories from the north.
Well, you definitely have Sasquatch.
Well, obviously.
And
Oh,
there's
yeah,
the,
of course.
then there's the Michigan Dog Man. I think there's a couple lake monsters up in that area as well.
Lake Erie. There was the Lake Erie monster. That's a thing that came up multiple times. I remember from my childhood. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff from the north. All over the place. You get them everywhere.
Oh, everywhere.
So many cryptids.
That's seriously, and that's, I guess, we can ask the audience here, what's your favorite cryptid? I know a lot of people that are really big into Bigfoot, and some people are like, that's dumb, but there's so many of them out there. You've got like the Chupacabra, you've got the Jersey Devil, Loch Ness Monster, all the way to like Mongolian death worms. That would even be like a cryptid. What's your favorite cryptid? What is that one thing out there that there's so many reports of, but nobody's ever like captured one? Let us know. There's a ton of them, and I want to know all of them from everywhere. Yes, definitely let us know. And that wraps up our movies. Actually, we got some birthdays to go into this week.
Well, we got one birthday this week, and one birthday, and we have a couple memoriams. But our first birthday is legendary horror actress. Happy birthday to Linda Blair, who was born January 22nd, 1959, and the wonderful actress who brought us Regan from The Exorcist.
Wow. That's a big one right there.
Yes.
That's a hell of a way to start things off.
Yes, amazing actress, super talented. Pretty much everyone knows her as Regan from The Exorcist, and for which a performance which she was nominated for an Academy Award and won a Golden Globe for. And she reprised the role in Exorcist 2. She came back for the sequel in 1977 and was nominated for a Saturn Award for that. But absolutely, wonderful actress. She got her start in where was it? She got her start in film, I think, in 1970, and went on to star in some major films like Born Innocent, Portrait of a Teenage Alcoholic, and then Roller Boogie was the big one.
I love that
Roller
name.
Boogie in 1979 established her as a sex symbol, and she's just been going to town, just running on that, and she has been a staple in horror appearances, and she's shown up. I believe she showed up in Supernatural. She has just run the gamut as a scream queen ever since, and just absolutely wonderful to watch. I love it every time she shows up.
Yeah, she's actually has a short. Oh, the Blair Bitch Project. It's a short coming out this year, so I kind of want to check that out.
Still killing it at 60 years old. Way to go.
Hell yeah! I also want to give kind of a shout out because Linda does activist work. She's an activist and one of my favorite kind who specializes in rescue animals. So I want to give a shout out because back in 2004, she founded the Linda Blair World Heart Foundation, which rehabilitates and helps to get adopted rescue animals. So I read about that and I looked into their mission statement. They're really, really good. They've helped to rehabilitate and home thousands of what some would call lost causes. And they do some really wonderful work. So if you dig animals and you love Linda Blair and what she's contributed to horror, definitely give them a check out. So, but yes, happy birthday, Linda.
Happy birthday, Linda.
Happy birthday, Linda. The next one we have is actually in memoriam, and that is Rutger Haller, who was born January 23rd, 1944, and passed away July 19th, 2019. A legend. A legend.
Yeah.
His filmography is just incredible, with the biggest being the Ridley Scott Blade Runner from 1992. He was also in The Hitcher, Batman Begins, a little Jim favorite of mine, Hobo with a Shotgun.
I was going to go with Blind Fury.
A hobo with a shotgun.
I love some Blind Fury too. Blind Fury may have one of the most hilarious lines I've ever heard in a film. And it was when it was like the ski skiff pulled into the station, and you had all these bad guys like shoot it up, right? Because, Rutger Haller, the main character, is inside. And they're all shoot it up and all this other kind of stuff. And someone dubbed in the line after they finished shooting up the ski lift, and it is, "Damn, that has more holes than my daddy's condom."
Oh, love it.
So favorite moment of that film, but I mean, just an incredible filmography. That's just, I mean, he has Alias, Smallville, just, I mean, incredible. Sin City, kind of thing. Just definitely, just huge.
Was he involved in Sin City too?
I don't know.
I think they used archive footage in that one.
Yeah.
So, but he did. But a couple of my favorites of his, obviously Blade Runner. His performances as Roy Batty was absolutely phenomenal. Staple of sci-fi. I really dug him in Split Second, even though it was a silly movie and it was cop versus serial killer demon. But he did such fantastic work in that and played his character. That was the one thing I love about watching Rutger work, is no matter what he was playing, whether it be vampire or detective or hobo with a shotgun, he always went 100%. And I loved his dedication to the craft. Especially other ones like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the Joss Whedon film with Christy Swanson. Mm-hmm. He was the vampire Lothos, the leader of all the vampires in that one. That was an epic. I just love epic film. And of course, I really enjoyed him in Surviving the Game.
That's the one where they're out in the woods, right?
Yeah, with Ice Cube. No, Ice T. That's right, Ice T. Ice T and Crazy Gary Busey.
God, I love that guy.
So, but a whole bunch. I mean, it goes on and on. This guy was churning out several movies a year, and such. He was in Batman Begins. That's right. Yeah. Christopher Nolan made use of him as the dude who gets fired at the end because he was an asshole.
He's just being a dick.
He's just being a dick. And it looks like he's got several things coming out posthumously that we can look forward to. So we've got Break, we've got Emperor, we got the Sonata, Tonight at Noon, all coming out since he passed away. So we have a lot. We still got more excellent work from Rutger coming out. Rest in peace, bud. We're gonna miss him.
Yeah, absolutely.
You definitely rest in peace.
Yeah. Happy birthday and have a good sleep. All right, moving on to our last in memoriam again.
We're going so dark.
God, man, it's been a rough month.
This was a tough week. This was a tough week.
Actually, a Texas boy born January 25th, 1943 in Austin, Texas, unfortunately passed away in August 26, 2017. I don't even know what decade we're in, millennium, whatever. But Tobe Hooper, director involved with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Poltergeist. One of my favorites, Invaders from Mars, was an excellent movie that came out way back in 1986. Yeah, I mean, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, if you've seen it, you've dealt with Tobe Hooper, and he was involved in most of them, I believe, if not all of them.
I mean, yeah, definitely most of them. You want to talk about a pioneer in the slasher genre?
Throughout the decades, too. I mean, like Leatherface, both like the 1990, and then I think the other one was, shoot, I don't remember what year it was. It was recent, though.
You talking about the remake,
Yeah.
the 2003 remake with Jessica Biel?
No. Leatherface. It came out in 2017, the year he died.
Oh, yeah. The part of the new continuity.
Yeah,
where they
yeah.
they turned him into an anti-hero.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
It was
unbelievable.
it was his early stuff that I mean when he was established stuff that I really really enjoy. Obviously, I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This excellent. I really enjoyed the work he did on the miniseries based on Salem's Lot by Stephen King.
Salem's Law was good.
Yeah, he did really good on that one, and of course, The Funhouse, another classic, horror from 1981, a terrific studio slasher film, and then of course, Poltergeist. You can't fault that. Although, I forgive the rumors that Spielberg stepped in to assist him with that. Poltergeist, I don't think was really in Toby's wheelhouse, and at least he had Spielberg to lean on to help make that movie so strong. The problem was, it was so strong that he could not live up to the expectation of being Spielberg.
The fact that he gave the reins to him, though, knowing that he was going to do a better job in that specific role, is super admirable.
I mean,
it does show a dedication to getting it done and getting it done right for the audience.
To the audience, exactly. And that's what made him such a good director, was he made sure that it was going to go over with not like a mass mainstream audience, but the people who enjoyed his filmography, his work, and he made sure to get the feedback from his fans and put it into his movies. And that's why you get all these Texas Chainsaw Massacres. I don't know. I saw one of my favorites that he dealt with was Prey. I don't know if you ever watched it.
I haven't seen it.
I think it came out, it was late 90s, and it wasn't necessarily straight up like horror, but I guess it was almost like sci-fi. I don't know. It was a really good movie. If you get a chance, check that out.
I mean, he even comes in with I know we talk about this, it seems like almost every week, but he directed 2 episodes of Masters of Horror. Mm-hmm. Kind of thing, and
Tales of the Crypt, or Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah, Tales from the Crypt. I mean, just somebody who he went and established a genre, and even the fact that Steven Spielberg picked him, to do this other project, and he stayed with it, kind of thing. Just a legend in his own right.
He was in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre too. He played in that. He was an uncredited actor in that. He was a dude in the hotel. God, I can't remember the name of the lady, but yeah. So he was in the hotel. He kind of popped into a few movies that he worked with. He was just an all around. He was a great director.
He was innovative. Definitely pushed boundaries when it came to shock horror.
Yeah,
and was renowned for his ability to generate excellent footage like that, and generate an excellent product on low budgets. So, just an innovator and a legend all around. Man, I wish we could have gotten more from him. But all the stuff that we did, I cherish it all. So, love all the love to Tobe Hooper.
Tobe Hooper, rest in peace. All right. Well, that's all we have for today, right? I want to give everybody a thanks for listening. Go ahead, and we love all feedback, comments, questions, things you love about our podcast, things that we can improve on. Please let us know, and always check out our episodes. You can find them all over the place with Anchor and Spotify and Google Play and iHeartRadio and all your other favorite ones. We do have our Patreon now, right? We have Patreon/weekinhorror, right? There you can actually get some other paid content just for help sponsoring us. You're going to get a monthly bloodbath where we go and we take two horror icons and we put them against each other, and we take our expertise and we debate and argue and see who would win in a fight. We also have our After Dark, where once a month we have special guests, directors, actors, real working people in the film industry, and we basically get to hang out and chill with them and talk about things that they see the horror genre going and the industry itself, and it gives you a kind of an insider's peek. So check that out on patreon.com, and always go to facebook.com/weekinhorror, and also on Twitter at weekinhorror, at weekinhorror, and that way you get your daily splatter, a little bit of horror trivia every single day. And so once again, thank you so much for listening. I'm Eugene.
Thanks, guys. I'm Alex.
And I'm JL.
And we'll catch y'all next time.